Chapter 10. On the Move. The Plan. Two of a Kind. Devon awoke to the sound of heavy thudding at his door. His heart skipped a beat before he realised what was going on. He put on his loose-fitting desert clothes just before the door opened. Dr. Rosen stood in the doorway, surrounded by a few larger guardsmen.
"Oh, thank heavens you're awake," blurted Dr. Rosen as he entered the room. "We've got dire trouble, my boy. You need to come with us."
Devon blinked a few more times, trying to wipe the sleep from his eyes. "All right," he replied, his mind sharpening to the request. After a few moments, they made their way downstairs and out of the building. Devon was surprised to see Uriah waiting for them outside. He stopped before her, shocked by what he saw. He was not the only one who received new clothes from their host. She had a tan tunic on, fitted with some matching leggings as well. A white sheer sarong embraced her hips, with a small matching scarf around her neck.
"Hi," he said to her.
"We've got company," she muttered stoically. Devon turned back to Dr. Rosen. The older man was panting from the morning's exertion. He motioned for them to enter a smaller building on the other side of the street. A few more armed guards stood before it, waiting for them to enter. The three followed their escort into the building. The hallway had a few doorways off to the side, but they were led to the one at the very end. Another guard opened the door. Devon entered, only to see a few men gathered around a table. They looked up from their micro-meeting to greet them.
"Ah, yes, our guests," replied the man from behind the desk.
His spindled form rose from his chair as he reached out to shake Devon's hand. "I am Overseer Phalion. Welcome to Valenice." Devon nodded in appreciation, noting the gesture he was not given when he first arrived. Dr. Rosen stood by Devon's side, observing the apparent scouting outline that was mapped out on the desk. "We finally figured out what happened to the other transports," he told Devon. "There have been sightings of lizard-like creatures roaming the deserts. Our scouts have picked up an encampment about 4 microplicks away. They seem to be heading in our direction. Do you have any idea where they come from?" Devon's throat tightened. He had encountered these things before, and now they were after him here too. "They're after me," he replied to Phalion. "I shouldn't be here. I'm risking your sovereignty with my presence. If I can get an escort out of the city, I can at least lead them away from you." The overseer watched the man before him. He had expected as much, but did not expect the truth of his ventures. Honesty was a quality that was lacking among those who scavenged this barren world. "They attacked my people," replied the overseer. "Regardless of what they want, they've given us no other choice but to fight back. If it were as easy as handing you over to satisfy their appeasement, then you realise what I would have done otherwise." "I understand," Devon replied, "but I've come here for a very important reason. Whatever is on this moon of yours is where I need to go." The overseer flashed him a surprising look. His eyes shifted to Dr. Rosen. "Is this true?" "Indeed, Phalion," Rosen replied. "Andromana is real. We witnessed it last night. It is only visible after dusk, slivered along the rugged peaks of the Marrow Mountains, shrouded from the world." The overseer looked perplexed by the idea of something so far-fetched coming to fruition. "I see," he replied. "Dr. Rosen, it would appear that this is your field of expertise. Is there a way to help these people to get to where they need to?" "If they've landed troops," Devon thought aloud, "then they have transports that can lead us into space. They can take us to your moon." Dr. Rosen nodded at the idea. It made sense. "But how are we going to retrieve this transport?" asked one of the guards. "Surely they will not surrender one to us." Phalion rubbed his bony chin in thought. "No, but if we attack them before they reach us, then we can take them by surprise," he surmised. "We can create a diversion outside their camp. Here," he pointed to an area on the map. "At the same time, we can send in a team to extract the craft on the opposite side. That is, if we can catch them off guard enough to take out the group before more arrive. Jorg, How many did you say there were?
30, replied the young guard. There was one craft at the encampment that we scouted. That is all. Devon glanced over to Uriah. She appeared disinterested in the conversation. Whether it was because of the strangers in the room or the possible futility of the mission, he could not tell. But he was curious as to why. What do you think? She stared at him, her green eyes catching him by surprise. What are you asking me for? She replied. No one cares about my opinion. I do, he told her. Her body froze, clenching with tension. I need your advice on this as well. Uriah shifted her lips around, her eyes averting from the awaiting gazes around her. The smaller the group, the better, she muttered, her words short and crisp. I can handle any opposition. It's up to the two of you to figure out how to run the ship. Devon agreed, turning to Dr. Rosen, who also agreed with the suggestion. Then that's settled, said the overseer. We'll send the small contingent to draw them off. The rest is up to you. The meeting ended without much more conversation on the subject. It appeared that the overseer was not worried about how the enemy would react to an advance upon their position. Devon followed Rosen out of the building as they awaited their transport. He looked at Uriah, noticing her lips were tight. Her eyes had turned to a dull, dark crimson. Thank you, he told her. I was hoping... Don't ever ask me to do that again, she interrupted. Her face looked angry at the thought of what had happened. What's wrong? Don't you think we're going to succeed? She stopped and turned to glare at him. She knew that his understanding of the situation was severely lacking. I'll fight for you. I'll try my best to keep them from reaching you, she breathed. But I am not here to make a difference in this matter. Do you understand what the consequences are if someone like me interferes with what's going on? Devon blinked. The idea had never occurred to him until now. But then, why are you here? You said you were here to help. Not because I wanted to, she huffed. I was thrust down here by that stupid demon, leaving my only friend to take him on alone. Now forgive me for not being a little more sympathetic, but I'm not comfortable with giving out orders to people who matter very little to me. Devon hesitated. He could not understand why she was so angry. Why does everyone matter so little to you? What have they done to you to warrant such animosity? Uriah started to huff with anger. Until you go through what I have, you will never understand my situation. Remember that, she gruffly replied. I've seen more horror than you can imagine. I've seen enough death and evil to last a lifetime. And that, unfortunately for me, is probably until the end of time. Now, can you please respect my request? She turned away from him, knowing full well that men just could not understand her. They never have. Just thinking about it made her blood steam over. His hand caught her shoulder. She swung around, raising her arm up as if to strike out at him. The look in his eyes stayed her hand. She had seen that look before. Her inner struggles did not know whether to be relieved by it or stay angry enough to continue her strike. I'm sorry, he confessed to her. I truly am. You are right. I will never know what you've been through. I can hardly believe what I'm going through now. But I need to start somewhere, right? Her hand lowered, but she said nothing. Devon continued, trying to plead to her. Can you please stop being so angry and start helping me to understand? She stared at him, not knowing whether to do what he asked or just walk away. The emotional turmoil within her made the choice instinctively. She wrenched her shoulder from his grip. Let me know when we leave, she told him with swirling eyes. Without waiting for a reply, she walked away, back to the building where they stayed. Devon watched, feeling at a loss for not being able to help her. Rosen approached him from the side with a slight grin upon his face. My, what wonders doth carry beyond a lover's quarrel, he muttered with a chuckle. Devon's heart thudded. What makes you think we're lovers? Rosen looked up at the younger, wondering if he truly understood a woman's feelings. "Fascinating creature. The colour of her eyes change with her feelings," he replied. "I would get to know their meaning before reacting to her moods. She may be feeling differently inside, and that is something that she truly cannot hide." Devin slowly nodded, noting the old man's poetic observation. But he still didn't think that she had any feelings for him. On the contrary, it appeared as if her rose-coloured eyes meant that she hated him and her situation more than anything else. The transport skittered across the sand, the up and down motions giving a slight pull to Devin's insides. For some reason, the bobbing gave him a queasiness that just would not go away. After all of the fighter flying, all of the rocky boats he had been on before, nothing was worse than feeling like he was going to be sick now. He took his eyes off the other ships and tried to concentrate on something close by, hoping that he would not lose the contents of his stomach. "Relax, my boy," called out Dr. Rosen. "After 40 years, I still have difficulty with the motions myself." Devin tried to take some reassurance in what he said, but it was not working. His eyes flitted over to Uriah. She had remained still and quiet since they left. It was hard to tell if she was going to keep her word in helping dispatch the enemy like she said she would. A part of him expected her to walk away and never be seen again. But she hung around, if not for him, then something else. Maybe even someone else. It was hard not to get discouraged by her attitude, a feeling he did not like having. He was also feeling uncomfortable with the fact that all these people around him were stepping up and going out of their way to help him. "I just wish there was something I could do for them in return," he thought. There was nothing more in life that he cherished than to see others succeed. But how he could help them was beyond even his ability at the moment. That notion left him with the single reason that kept him going: trying to find a way back home. He dreaded spending any more time here than he had to. Devin liked Rosen and the people of Valenice, but he sensed as if his presence was inconveniencing them and putting them into unnecessary danger. He did not belong here any more than Uriah did. Devin stared at the woman sitting across from him. Her head hung low, her eyes closed, apparently resting for the upcoming confrontation. How anyone could rest on this bumpy cart ride was beyond him, as the transport hit another dive. It intrigued him that someone as beautiful as she had so many problems with others. Devin began to think of what would have happened if Brianna were here instead of her. His mood lightened slightly. At last, he finally had a name to put to the face. She probably would have made for better company. She was nicer, gentler, and more compassionate than anyone he had ever met, which was why it troubled him so to think of the reasons for her not to appear. With each passing night that went by, his heart grew heavy and wearisome. Just the mere thought of her image made his heart flutter. He dared not tell anyone, including Wanda, that he was smitten by her. No other woman he encountered had shuttered his heart the way she did. He wanted to ask Uriah about her, learn all that was possible about the woman known as Brianna, but he knew better. It was hard enough to get her to cooperate as it was. He began to formulate ways that he could get what he needed. He had to approach her differently. The transport dipped once again as the engines began to wind down. Devin looked up, thankful that either they were there or something was wrong and they had to stop. Within a few minutes, the transport stopped behind a large dune that towered before them. To Devin, they all looked the same. How they knew where they were going, he could only guess. The other guard passengers began to file out, giving him the impression that things were about to happen. Dr. Rosen lurched ahead to talk to the driver. He nodded, moving back and patting Devin on the shoulder. "We're here," he announced. Devin turned to Uriah. Reaching over, he gently shook her by the arm. Her blue eyes opened to his as she did not flinch or waver at his touch this time. "It's time," he told her. Uriah nodded. She stood up with the rest as they made their way out of the transport. Rosen bade them to follow toward a small posted tent at the base of the dune. A lone figure exited the tent as he moved to greet Dr. Rosen. "Is everything ready, Rianne?" "Yes," he replied. "Do you think it is wise to attack them now? They're preparing to move again as we speak. I don't think there is much we can do at this point." Dr. Rosen waved his hand down. "We have to," he replied. "If we don't stop them now, then there's no telling what they'll do when they reach Valenice." "They're holding up on the other side of this dune at the moment," Rianne stated. "I don't think they've noticed us as of yet, but they may be onto our scouts. The last one hasn't reported back to us." "We'll flank their positions if you can draw them off," said Devin. "We can quarter them and finish them before any more can arrive." The guard's eyes widened. "There's more?" Rosen and the guards both looked at him in shock. "More than any of us can handle if we let even one of them escape," warned Devin. "It is imperative to keep this as quick and quiet as possible." Rianne agreed as Rosen prepared himself as well. "Here, you should take this," said the doctor, handing Devin an object that looked strikingly similar to a compact rifle. "It shoots energy bolts. It was made for stunning predators, or killing enemies, depending on which history books you read." Devin gripped the long, sleek object, guiding his eyes over the essential features. He smiled, thinking that maybe he would not be so defenseless now with something like this at his side. "All right, let's go then," he stated. He glanced at Uriah. She just stared at him without a word, which made Devin grin. Now he had the means to do the protecting. Rosen handed the binoculars over to Devin. He peered through them, observing the scene below. Devin was excited at first. There were 2 shuttles parked side by side, but one was lifting off just as they arrived to the top of the dune. Now there was only 1 shuttle, and more troops than they thought. Something was going on. "Well, that simplifies things a little," whispered Devin. Uriah glared at him. "What makes you say that?" Devin acted surprised that she was talking to him. "Simple deduction," he told her. "It's all or nothing now, kiddo. We either make it to that one, or we fail." Uriah grimaced, but not at what was happening below. "Kiddo," she huffed, "I'm at least 100 years older than you." "You know, I hate to break this up," interrupted Rosen, "but it looks like our boys are ready to go." Devin blushed. Their quarrel was getting a little out of hand. He acknowledged Rosen and ignored Uriah. He could tell she was fuming, not liking the way he was treating her. Out of the corner of their perception, they saw the Renvara guards getting ready to strike at the lizard creatures below. By the way they were described to him by Kaya, the horrid sight of these creatures was enough to make anyone's stomach turn. Most of them did not have enough skin to cover most of their bodies. Their green-tinted hues grotesquely blared out from their beings, despite the fact that they appeared to be well armed and ready. Devin pursed his lips together. The heat of the moment was catching up to him, a feeling he missed from the athletic days of old. He waited for a second, gripping his weapon tight, anticipating the enemy. He signaled to Dr. Rosen. It was time. Rosen pulled out a small device with a red button on it. He pressed the button. There was a small reply chirp from the device as Dr. Rosen turned back to Devin. "All set," he told them. There was a scurry of movement from below as the lizard creatures rushed over to the side of the dune. A volley of fire came from the Renvara guards as they engaged the abysmal beasts. Much to Devin's chagrin, a few of the creatures stayed back to guard the shuttle. They at least knew well enough to protect their own, and to not be careless as he had hoped. Devin flexed his cheeks as he prepared for the next move. "Showtime," he said. Rising up off the sand, Devin charged down the dune. Uriah stared at him in shock. "No, wait, we—" But it was too late. He was already gone. Her eyes narrowed. His foolhardiness at trying to be a hero was beginning to drive her crazy.
She rose up from the sand as well. With a quick blink, she grabbed her staff as her wings shot up from her backside. She leapt into the air, taking to flight above the scene below. Dr. Rosen watched the two, inspired by their actions, and wishing that he were 20 years younger. Yet, all he could do was watch them take charge, marvelled by their ability to act as a fighting duo. Devin barreled down the sand dune, keeping as low as he could before the first creature could take action against him. It was the national championships all over again. A putrid smell began to attack his senses. Devin's nose cringed in disgust, the waft of rotting flesh numbing his sense of smell in the arid climate. The further he descended toward them, the worse it became. Two creatures turned, surprised by the sudden appearance of a lone human running down the dune. Before they could get their weapons ready, Devin shot them with a blaze of stunning electricity. They convulsed in their spots before falling to the ground. The two others turned at the sound of fire, raising their guns at Devin. He cursed his inability to descend fast enough through the sand before they reacted. Lowering his centre of gravity, Devin tried to anticipate the fire. A bolt of light flew past his head. He ducked down, planting himself into the sand. Another blast hit a few feet before him, sending a shower of granules flying into the air. Bringing his gun up to sights, he tried to get a shot off when the air had cleared, but something was going on beyond the cloud of sand. There were sounds of grunts and clashes of metal. Devin peered to see a flurry of white descend upon the remaining soldiers. Uriah was attacking the rest. She landed between the two, the swiftness of her staff strikes catching both creatures off guard. Within seconds, they were on the ground. Uriah eyed them, staff twirling in her grip, making sure to strike the first unfortunate creature attempting to rise. After a few more blows, both creatures lay still on the ground. Devin hobbled over to her, amazed at her ability to fight with such ferocity. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Uriah glanced at him, her eyes dodging his as she walked past toward the ship. "Hell," she muttered. Devin's look of surprise followed her path. He was starting to get the idea that her life was way more than he could ever comprehend. It gave him a shiver to think that hell existed, let alone knowing someone who had been there. It brought back that chilling dream he had of his mother. Devin tried to play it off as just another bad dream, but now the surrealness of his thoughts protruded his deepest fears. A few heavy-laden footsteps came trumping toward the two. Devin turned to see Dr. Rosen looking about at the creatures lying on the ground. "My word, what is that foul smell?" he asked, pinching his nose. Devin did not have time to explain the story behind the lizard men, but he could understand the old man's curiosity. "Let's just say they were dead before we killed them," he pressed. "Let's get going." Rosen agreed as the three entered the transport. Whatever ships that Devin had been introduced to paled in comparison to the interior of the enemy's ship. For one, it was very dark. The soft light from the instrument panels did little to illuminate the insides. The forward view was also dim due to the heavy tinting of the large view window. Devin wriggled his nose, noting that the inside of the ship smelt just as bad as the creatures themselves. He didn't know how they were going to be able to fly with such a stench. Rosen sat at one of the command chairs in front. Devin took to the second one. They both looked over the controls with much amazement and wonder. Strange markings covered all of the panels next to the controls and all of the monitors around each station. Devin shook his head. "I don't know where to start," he exclaimed. Dr. Rosen studied the controls with an equal amount of loss. "It would take me years to try and translate this gibberish, let alone try and solve the puzzle on how to fly it." Devin grinned, but not in amusement. Here they were, moments from being able to leave, and they could not even figure out how to turn the damn thing on. A soft, gentle hand fell upon his shoulder. He looked up to see Uriah checking out the control panel. She waved a subtle hand over the controls, and to his amazement, the markings started to change. Within seconds, they turned into letters, then words. He observed each one, realizing what their functions were. Devon gazed at Uriah. She nodded to him in silence, giving him a half-smile.
"My word," breathed Dr. Rosen. "You are a remarkable woman." Devon began to feel the same way. Despite her moodiness, she was nothing short of a miracle to him. Rosen glanced about, finding the right levers and buttons to press. Slowly, the engines came to life. The back hatchway closed, securing itself for launch. After a few seconds of familiarizing himself, Devon pressed a few buttons on his side. He switched to the outside monitor as the scene of the battle appeared on the little screen. The guards that assisted them were not armed well enough, and they were being advanced upon by the lizard men. Devon gritted his teeth. "We can't just leave them to die here," he said, pressing some of the buttons before him. A smaller control ejected from beneath the central panel as he was suddenly aware of what it was. "Fly over them. I'll take them out with the laser cannons." Rosen nodded, and within seconds the ship was gliding over the sand. It bobbed and weaved. Devon realized that the poor old man had never flown anything like this before. He reaffirmed his sights, knowing that he had to take great care to shoot at the right targets. The undead creatures turned toward the sound of the moving transport, their curiosity catching them off guard. The lead lizard stopped and watched. He began to speak into a device on his wrist, not knowing what to think of this odd move. Devon open-fired upon the unsuspecting creatures. They began to scatter, surprised that their own ship was firing upon them, but Devon had already taken out almost half of them before they even knew what was going on. Rosen tried to steady the ship as best he could, but Devon's targeting skills were on their mark. All that flying in space had paid off with his target practice. Within minutes, there were only a few creatures left. The human guards began to surround them in a last-ditch showdown. Devon sat back, watching as they took out the rest without any more losses. "Well, it looks like our job here is done," said Rosen, pressing the autopilot button. He turned the controls over to Devon. The young man stared at him curiously. "Don't you want to fly the ship?" Rosen chuckled. "My dear boy, I think I've flown enough to last a lifetime. You are much better suited to handle the rest. My thanks to you, though. It was an experience I will never forget." Devon smiled. He turned to Uriah. She was watching him, her rose-coloured eyes flashing her support. He knew she trusted him. There was no other reason for her not to release her hand that was still gripping his shoulder. The ship turned about and shot up into the sky,